Everyone, this is Elena and I'm back with another video showing you this month's Suzy stamp of the month, and I will make another masculine card using this stamp because when I received this stamp it kind of screamed to me like masculine. So I'm making another masculine card. You will notice that during the card making process I changed my mind a couple times. So you will see the whole creative process in this video. And I'm using my stamp positioner to stamp that circle image perfectly onto my die cut circle. And I'm using first the negative to position that stamp so that piece of negative, it's kind of nice, it doesn't go over the edges of the Misty. So I'm just picking it up with my the door of the mini Misty, and then using some darker ink I stamp onto that grid paper. So after I've stamped that, it doesn't need to be perfect, so I just position on top of it the negative of my die cut and then secure it with my magnets, so that way I know where that stamp will stamp onto my die cut image. Next, I slip the die cut image, the die cut, not image but circle, into that negative so it lays perfectly. And I'm using the powder tool. Actually, first you will notice that my finished card, I'm not using this image, I'm not using the gold embossed image, but I'm using one that's stamped in black because during the card making process I decided that it was too much gold for masculine cards, so I decided to go with black. So now I'm using just Versamark to stamp onto that, and then I will emboss it with antique gold ink. So I just left this in the video so you see how you can, even though you can see where you stamp, you can perfectly do that with the stamp positioner tool with the Misty. So next I'm taking my embossing powder and I'll remove the image from the Misty. And I'm using little Sistema containers where usually I store my embossing powders in those, and they stack pretty nicely on top of each other. So I'm just putting that in the container, and I'm dumping a bunch of embossing powder on top of it. So this kind of reveals the image. So I make sure that the image is nicely covered with that embossing powder, and then I'll just grab it with tweezers to make sure that I don't remove any of the embossing powder that's on the edges as I'm holding it. So I'm taking my tweezers and moving that carefully and shaking the excess embossing powder. Next, I'll just put it on my mat and emboss it using my heat gun. So I'm embossing the image here. So there is the nice and shiny. And then I'm taking the thanks die cut. I'm removing all the extra like pieces that were left over while die cutting it. And then I put it on a scrap piece of paper and kind of sponge it, not sponge it, but ink it up with my Versamark ink, and then I cover it with embossing powder. And then I'll just heat it up with the heat gun to melt that embossing powder, and then I'm going over it again. Not going over it, but I'm dumping it again in the embossing powder container and to add some more embossing powder. So we have that thanks sentiment now done. Next, I'm taking a piece of paper, very vanilla cardstock, and I'm sponging the edges using the Versamark ink, and then just applying some of the same embossing powder, kind of to have a little bit distressed look. So and then I'm just heating it up to melt that embossing powder. Make sure that it's melted on all the sides. So there we have that one. So this is where I decided that that was too much gold for my card. And I went over and I stamped the same image with black. Then I'm using my Xyron sticker maker to apply adhesive onto my Thanks sentiment, the Thanks die cut. So now here I decided that it was too much white, so I'll get some black card base. It's 11 by 4 1/4. And again, it was like too simple for me, so I'm all about clean and simple, but this was like too much white, too much cream. So I'm getting some Stampin' Up! Pattern paper, little Starry Night theme. So I'm applying that one, and then I'll add my image, and then I'll apply the Thanks die cut. And to finish off the card, I'll just adhere that whole panel onto my black card base. So that's it for today. Thanks for watching.